The remaining relevant learning factors are cognitive and affective considerations. With regard to cognitive consideration, human cognition develops rapidly throughout the first 16 years of life and less rapidly thereafter. So the human cognition, the cognitive aspects or cognitive processes develop very rapidly during the initial 16 years of life, and then later on it slows down. Some cognitive changes are critical, others are more gradual and difficult to detect. So some are very abrupt and very critical, but there are other changes which are very slow in the process and very difficult to assess or very difficult to identify. We are going to discuss two researchers' point of views with regard to cognitive consideration. One is Jean Piaget. His aspect of understanding of cognitive consideration in the context of second language acquisition basically refers to outlining of 3 or 4 stages of intellectual development. So basically these stages or developmental stages have been proposed by Piaget. Then we have Ausubel, and according to him, grammar in adults is easier because of the relevance of connection in cognition. So with regard to the grammar and the cognition is a interrelated and quite connected phenomena, and the relevancy has been determined with regard to the connection in cognition. Let's try to first of all understand the intellectual development stages as proposed by Jean Piaget. We have this sensory motor stage, birth to 2 years. We have pre-operational stage, ages 2 to 7. Then we have operational stage, which has the concrete operational stage and the formal operational stage. Now, the sensory motor stage, according to Piaget theory, it starts or lasts from birth to approximately age 2 and is centered on the infants trying to make sense of the world. During the sensory motor stage, an infant's knowledge of the world is limited to their sensory perceptions and only motor activities. Behaviors over here are limited to simple motor responses caused by stimulus or sensory stimuli. At this stage, basically, we see that children utilize skills and abilities they were born with, such as looking, grasping, sucking, listening, to learn more about the environment. Then you have the pre-operational stage, where, according to Piaget, children in this stage do not yet understand concrete logic, cannot mentally manipulate information, and are unable to take the point of view of other people, which he termed as egocentrism, because they are quite egoist about their language and they are not concerned with other people's behavior or reaction to their expression, especially at this age, which is age 2 to 7. Now, operational stage, we have 7 to 16 years, and under this stage you have concrete operational stage, whereby children gain a better understanding of mental operations. They begin thinking logically about concrete events, but they do demonstrate difficulty understanding abstract or hypothetical concepts. Now, in the formal operational stage, which begins or which starts from age 11 to 16, we see that people develop the ability during this stage, they develop the ability to think. It's a high level of thinking. Skills such as logical thoughts, deductive reasoning, systematic planning also emerge during this particular stage. Ausubel says that adults may in fact benefit from certain grammatical explanation and deductive thinking that would be pointless for children. So when we are talking about adults and we are concerning adults with regard to this particular cognitive consideration, we see that adults seem to benefit from these grammatical explanation or deductive thinking, because these two things, as we have seen from all these stages, have no meaning to children. The benefit of such explanation, however, depends on the suitability and efficiency of the explanation, teacher, context, and other pedagogical variables. So we see the explanation, the grammatical explanation or deductive thinking have or are dependent on the efficiency of the explanation. And when we are talking about the explanation, we see the role of the teacher, the context in which it takes place, and the pedagogical variables, the pedagogical mechanism that is followed with regard to this explanation. Now, this is again something where the children do not have any interest or play a very positive or very concrete role. Young children are generally not aware that they are acquiring a language, nor are they aware of societal values and attitude to one language or another. So we see that this phenomena of social awareness, societal values, or even having the conscious awareness of acquiring a language is not present in the case of children. Now we have affective considerations. At the heart of all thoughts and meaning and action is emotion. Our emotions influence our thinking and our actions. It is very important to develop the understanding of affective domain with regard to the analysis of differences between first as well as the second language acquisition. The affective domain which are there under study include many factors such as empathy, self-esteem, extroversion, inhibition, imitation, anxiety, attitude, etc. So affective domains have everything to do with our emotional or mental state, and it is important that all these factors, to understand how these factors contribute in analyzing the differences between the first language acquisition and the second language acquisition. Now in front of you, you see the affective consideration include the domains are empathy, self-esteem, self-respect, extroversion, your outward behavior, inhibition, imitation, anxiety, attitude. So these are the affective domains. And but a case in point, or basically the important part, is the role of egocentricity. This is a very important as far as children are concerned. Very young children are highly egocentric. I mean, in pre-adolescence, children develop an acute consciousness of themselves as separate and identifiable entities, but one which needs protecting. So they therefore develop inhibition about this self-identity. For any monolingual person, the language ego involves the interaction of native language and ego development. So egocentricity is very unique phenomena as far as the affective consideration are concerned. New language does not pose a threat or inhibition to the ego of children, because they are more concerned with their identity, with their language, and they are less frightened or fearful because they are less aware of the forms. So there is no inhibition, and the possibility of making mistakes in those forms does not concern them greatly. But mature adults manifest number of inhibition again. So adults show inhibition because they have the understanding of language and they are very particular with regard to making errors. The role of attitude is another important factor. Younger children are more likely to succeed learning other languages because they don't have negative attitude towards it. One's self-identity is inextricably bound up with one's language, and that's why you see the egocentricity in children. Finally, children are under high peer pressure. They want to be like the rest of the kids, and it can lead them to learn the second language. So adults tend to tolerate linguistics differences more than children. So errors are easily excused in the context of children and adults. To conclude, cognitive considerations include all intellectual behavior and requires thinking, and effective consideration deal with expressions of feeling, attitude, opinion, and values.